Hi everyone, this is Germinal Van, and today we're going to talk about how to write a paper of economic analysis. So I have to tell you that it's really not complicated. In fact, there's just a process to follow, and once you've done that, you can publish your paper at least as a working paper or submit it to academic journals. I will try to give you a list of academic journals that I know on the top of my head, and then you can try and publish with them and see if you get lucky to get published. So what are the steps? So of course, first and foremost, what you need to understand is that a paper of economic analysis is a scientific paper, which means that you have to apply the scientific method to the paper. Okay? Because when you submit your paper, uh, people are basically going to look for the method you've used to reach your conclusion. So they want to make sure that you've followed the steps of the scientific process in order to reach your conclusions. And you have to make sure that the conclusions that you've reached are not only valid, but also the method is reproducible. So the first is to have an abstract. Okay? The abstract is always the first thing in any scientific paper of economic analysis that you're trying to write, because based on the abstract, people will determine, specifically referees and the editor-in-chief, when you submit your paper to the journal, will determine if your paper is even worth being submitted for peer review or not. So the abstract is everything, and in the abstract you have to basically define the subject. Okay, so define the subject, state the problematic, and then state your goals. So basically, what are the conclusions you're trying to reach in your paper? So define the subject, state the problematic, and state your goals. Okay? Number two is, of course, to write the introduction. As you guys know, an introduction is where you basically introduce the subject that you're going to analyze throughout the paper. So it's basically the same. You define the subject, you state the problematic, and you state your goals. That is the same process that you reproduce again here in the introduction. So you define the subject, you state the problematic, and you state your goals. The same. So basically what you wrote in the abstract is the same you're writing in the introduction. And then you're going to estimate the model. So in the estimation of the model, you're basically going to tell the assumptions you are going to test. So you're basically telling the assumptions that you're going to test, and then you develop the model. So the model could be a mathematical model or is a statistical model. Let me tell you that most papers of economic analysis is generally papers of econometrics. You basically have to use econometric modeling, specifically if you want to publish with academic journals. Unless you submit your paper to the Journal of Mathematical Economics, that's where you don't have to use econometrics, but you still have to use math. If you really don't want to use math at all, I know there are two journals where you can actually publish your paper without any mathematics. Is the Independent Review, which is a libertarian journal, and then you have the Journal of Austrian Economics, and you also have the Quarterly Austrian Review or something like that. I'm not sure about the name, but they're Austrians. That's where you can publish your paper without having mathematics. But if you want to publish your paper with a conventional journal such as the Journal of Political Economy, such as Econometrica, or the Quarterly Journal of Economics, those big journals, you have to have a mathematical or statistical model in your paper. Otherwise, it will be immediately rejected. All right. So you estimate the model. Then number 4, you analyze the data. Basically, you say what the data is about, where you got the data. So let me put here, analyze the data. Okay, where you got the data. If the data you've got, you will have many sources. So you basically, that's what you're talking about. Like, what is, for instance, like n equals what? Like, what are the number of observations your data has? And then, so sources of your data. So in many papers of economic analysis, you will see that sometimes the data is just people writing a whole thing, because the data can have like 1,000 observations. You're not going to post a data of 1,000 observations in the paper. It will never end. So you basically write about the data, where you got it, how many observations it has, and how you analyze that data, and how you believe that that data fits what you're trying to test. All right. And then number 5, you test your model with the data. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. You test the model with the data. So basically, once you've determined number 3, okay, that's why you come here. Okay, number 3, you've determined your analysis data. You come here. You use the model that you've used in your estimation that you test in number 5. So you test your model with the data. Then number 6, empirical evidence and discussion. To me, this is the hardest part. Empirical evidence and discussion. So basically, what does it mean? It means that you're simply discussing the results. Discussing the results of your model. Basically, that's what it is. You're discussing the results of your model. So basically, you're creating a narrative based on the number crunching. Okay, so you're creating a narrative, and to me, it's a little difficult because you have to explain how the narrative holds the result of the model. All right, and then the last one is, of course, the conclusion or recommendation. It depends if I don't know if you're writing a paper where you do policy recommendation and stuff like that, but that's the part. See, so it's conclusions. So conclusion, I can also put recommendations. So these are the 7 steps that you have to follow if you want to publish a paper on economic analysis. You gotta write an abstract, and generally the journal will tell you your abstract has to be between 150 and 250 words. and then you have to put keywords. Oh, I forgot to mention that here. Add keywords. So you need to add keywords at the end of your abstract, okay? And then your introduction is simply a replica of your abstract but longer. So you're giving more information in the introduction. So replica of abstract with more information, with more info. Okay? And then you estimate the model here. Number 3, you estimate the model. So basically you're telling your audience which model you're going to use to explain what you're going to test. Okay? Which model you're going to use to explain what you're going to test. As I said, most papers are papers of econometrics. If you're using a paper, if you're doing a paper of mathematical economics, you are basically going to, in the 5th part, you're going to solve the mathematical model that you've estimated in part 3. Okay? So in part 4, you analyze the data. So once again, if your paper is basically a paper of pure economic theory, you may skip this part. So I'm going to say here, might get skipped. If paper of theory. So if it's a paper of economic theory, specifically a paper of mathematical economics, you may skip part 4 because what you're saying, what you're basically working on is a theory. You're not even proving that your theory is true, because in order to prove that your theory is true, you need the data. You have to confront your theory with the data. Until you've done that, you're just writing a theoretical paper. Okay? And then number 5, you test your model with the data. Okay? So you test the model with your data. But before I come to number 5, let me go back to number 4. If you're writing a normal paper of economic analysis, remember that you have to state the number of observations in your data. You have to state the sources where you got your data and how you built it. And if there are any dummy variables that you've extracted from it, and etc. You have to mention all of that in your data. That's why I said again, in most papers you will never see, when you read a paper of economic analysis, you will never, the data part, you will never see the actual data, because the data may contain a ton of observations that would take pages, and it can be, the whole paper can be like that just because of the data. So people write about the data verbally. They use verbal reasoning to describe the data that they're using to test their model, right? And then we come to number 5. You test your model with the data, of course. So what you've estimated in number 3, that's what you test in number 5. And then number 6 is pretty straightforward. You discuss the results of the model and how the results pertain to the subject and the problematic you've defined in your abstract and introduction. And then number 7, you simply write your conclusion. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so now what are some of the journals that you may submit your papers to? So I'm going to write 10 journals that come on the top of my mind, journals that I know, so that you have an idea. So I'm going to say journals of economics. Okay, so you have, of course, Quarterly Journal of Economics. This is the most prestigious journal of economics on earth. Okay, if you publish with this journal, you're pretty much 7% away, 70% away from winning the Nobel Prize in economics. You have Econometrica. Okay, you have the Journal of Political Economy. You have the Journal of Econometrics. You have the Journal of Economic History. Okay, it's 5. You have Journal of Mathematical Economics. Okay, you have Review of Economics and Statistics. What you have Journal of Applied Econometrics. You have can't remember, Journal of Economic Literature. And then number 10, I'm gonna write number 10 here. You have one journal that comes in my mind, can't really remember. Journal of Macroeconomics. So of course, please know that this order is not the actual ranking. It's just 10 journals that came in my mind that I wrote here. Some of them, for instance, the Journal of Mathematical Economics is not in the, it's not like it's not the top journal. It is like a B plus, A minus journal, but it's not like a plus. So you need to know. Like the top ones are this, Journal of Economic History, this. So you see, so these are the, and then these ones, Journal of Mathematical Economics, they're like A minus. Journal of Applied Econometrics, A minus, and then this is also A minus, but the rest they're all A's. So this is A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus. So yeah, so these are some of the journals that you can submit your papers to, and you can also submit your papers if you want to write working papers. I strongly suggest that you submit to the REPEC, which stands for Research Papers in Economics. So you have REPEC, you also have SSRN, which stands for Social Science Research Network. Okay, so these are the same. Okay, so let me write here, Social Science Research Network. Okay, and then you have, of course, research gates. So these I put in red are simply for working papers. So working papers are not journal articles. It's not the same thing. And one last thing I want to mention about journal articles is that the process is extremely rigorous. When you submit a paper for a journal, it will take time. It will take months. Usually journals are pretty fast when it comes to rejecting your papers. I have my papers rejected a ton before one of my papers got finally published by the Journal of Economics and Econometrics. Let me write it here, the journal that published me. So it's the Journal of Economics and Econometrics. So that's the journal that published my paper. But all of these guys here, they will reject you. I got rejected by the Quarterly Journal at least 4 times. So that is to let you know it is rigorous. When the editor-in-chief reads your abstract, he immediately knows if your paper is going to make through peer review or not. And then once they accept that your paper is peer reviewed, the process may take a couple months for people in the peer review to review your paper. And what they will focus the most in your paper is the model you've estimated, the data you've used, how you test the model, and pretty much, yeah, these are the 3 main, because they want to make sure that the tools you've used are reproducible. They want to make sure that the results you get, if we use those same tools, we're going to get the same results. So that's why the process is very rigorous. And once you're able to publish with an academic journal, you're pretty much set. So let me know what you think about this video in the comment. I hope you find it instructive and informative. And I will make more videos like this. Specifically, I will start talking more about economic models and the rationale behind it. So thank you very much for watching this video, and see you guys next time.